Yeah, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me without a mic? Would be my first question. Yes?
You have a good baritone note.
Thank you very much, Gianfranco. This helps me a lot in my start this morning. Yeah, so welcome everybody, and just to my person. So for many, many years I'm a coach, working as a coach, and I love it, working like that. I'm also working like an OD consultant, doing change management for a very long time. And many years ago, I discovered that there is something bridging the two, and it's called action learning. And accidentally, I came across it when I was doing a program in Harvard and MIT, and suddenly somebody said, well, what you're telling me, it sounds like action learning. Are you doing action learning? I said, I don't know, and no clue what it is. And so I came across it, and it became something like a passion also doing it, because it's really helpful, and I hope you may discover something of it too. And this comes to my first question: who of you is already familiar with action learning, what it is? Okay, so this seems to be about 30% or something. And so I would, in the beginning, give you a short introduction of what action learning is and what it has got to do with coaching on the one hand side and OD on the other hand. So, well, the first thing is I prepared this. It has a very nice story, this contribution. Originally, I planned to do it together with Mike Pettler. And Mike Pettler, when I told him 1 year ago that we are doing this here, he said, a very great idea, I come for the whole workshop and the whole seminar, I want to attend this. And then in the spring, Mike unfortunately had a severe accident. So he was falling and he had broken his neck, so which is really severe. But he was lucky enough, he is not paralyzed. So, but you can imagine how fragile this is. So he has to move very carefully, and his wife would never allow for him to travel. So he said he would stay. And then I decided to do it together with Kiran Trehan, who is a professor in Birmingham and one of the leading figures worldwide in critical action learning. And she said, yes, she's doing it with me together, and we prepared in Birmingham all this, what I'm doing now. And then she fell ill. She got a tonsillitis. It's a middle organ syndrome for those who know. And her ear was perforated. And day before yesterday, the doctor said she is not allowed to fly because of this. And yesterday, we found out that she has no more voice and is coughing all day. So doing a Skype with her would not be really pleasant for neither party, I'm afraid. So my apologies that I'm doing it alone, but at least you see this is Karen, and she is mentally with us and prepared. As I said, we prepared this together. So let me start with action learning. So action learning, in the description of Mike Pettler's, is an approach to individual and organizational development. And working in small groups, people tackle important organizational issues or problems and learn from their attempts to change things. So there you already see it's persons and it's changing things, what is action learning. And there is a founding personality there. It is called Reg Revans, who started in the 1970s or even earlier, 1970s, the term was coined. And he said he has not invented this, but it's the old wisdom of humankind. He said if you go to Buddhism or to the Bible, you find everywhere old things which are similar to what they are doing here, and he just systematized it. And I'll give you a short overview into this. So I'm afraid when I'm working with the computer, I'm always in the picture. Is that right? So maybe I'm dancing a little bit around you, or you let me know when you can't see that. Not from your side, I'm afraid. So, okay. So, other thing, what you could also move if you want to. No, it's just. Okay, so with the seesaws of action learning, you could see starting point is a problem resolution. Very often, and a problem in the sense of action learning is as opposed to a puzzle. For a puzzle, there is a clear solution already available, whereas for a problem is a no right answer situation. So the typical thing you have when you're doing coaching and when you're doing organizational development. So no right answer situations are problems. And whenever you tackle a problem, some learning takes place. And on the other hand, doing this in an organizational context, you will have organizational development with it. So like Kurt Lewin said, when you want to learn about an organization, try to change something. And this is what happens with problem resolution. And on the other hand, while doing this, while experiencing the forces of the organization, it's also leading to self-development, which is systematized in action learning. So this is like a seesaw, and this means wherever you start and whatever you do, all four sides will happen simultaneously. This is the idea behind it. And coming back to this problem, recently there was a connection made to other approaches like what Grind, a British academic, found out about different types of problems. And which is also, I think, part of it that action learning is a very vibrant community, and a lot of new developments are taking place there, despite all this old history behind it. So, and Grind, and this was adapted by Pedler, said there are the types of problems differ because of the amount of uncertainty on the one hand side and the need for collaboration on the other hand. So that is the difference, and there are critical problems which require swift action, and all managers would know that. So for instance, also for us, if a fire would break out here, nobody would start a reflection round, is that right? So we would just decide, let's get out here. And such things very often happen. All managers know that and work with it. And there is another type of problem. It's called the Tame problems. And Tame is because they're amenable to planning and processes. And if you look to the organizations you're working in, there is a hell of amount of processes they have developed over time. And there was an optimism in up to the 1980s or maybe even 90s that all problems can be tamed by adequate processes. But today, most managers, and we often ask managers, would agree that there is a third type. It's called the wicked problems. And the wicked problems happen despite all processes and planning. So, and they're coming more and more, and they require learning and collective learning. And this is why there is a need for collaboration is very high there, and it's not only in the doing, but also in the thinking, in the mindsets. It's about cultures too, and a lot of uncertainty is there. And uncertainty is the most typical thing, and we discussed a lot here during the recent days. When we ask managers, they say, okay, tame problems are a great amount of problems, but the real challenge are the wicked ones. Action learning, especially critical action learning, is designed for wicked problems to deal with them. So just let me give you a short overview of the so-called action learning set. This is the small groups you work together in action learning and how you're working there. Give you a short overview, probably most seems familiar to you, but just for you to know. So a set normally has 4 to 7 members. Could also be 8 or could be, but not less than 4, because you don't get variety if it's less than 4. Ground rules are most of the time confidentiality. Confidentiality means to build a safe ground for the group so they can discuss everything and still have clear boundaries to the outside. So openness, support, and challenge, and then the groups would decide what extra rules they would need. The next one is the time frame, preferably 6 months or longer, depending also on the task. Very often we have sets which are for a long time. For instance, university, we sometimes have sets who start at the beginning of the master program and stay together until the end of their studies. Sometimes others don't. The meeting sequence could be 4 to 8 weeks, depending also on the target. Tackling problems with the wicked problems, challenging projects. And then there are 2 different ways of doing it. could be shared problems of the set, so that they have one problem together, or could be individual problems of each set member, and the set is working with it. Well, there is a voluntary commitment. You can't force anybody to learn. So learning is always something voluntary. So this is what action learning uses. And of course, to be honest, in organizations, there's of course a group dynamic also to join all these things. But still, it's open. And my experiences in OD processes, there is always an amount of, let's say, 5, 10, 20% of managers who do not attend, at least not in the beginning. And this is also okay from the intervention. Facilitator guides the process, but encouraging self-facilitation. So Reg Revans already in the beginning said, be aware of ambiguous consultants, because they do much more than they should do. And managers should be responsible for what they are doing. And with critical action learning, we come to that later, you need more for the facilitator to do. So this has changed a little bit since the beginning. Well, just to combine or to compare peer mentoring, so like reflecting team, or could also be kaleidoscope, as we did it yesterday, to a set meeting as part of critical action learning. There are, of course, commonalities, but there are also differences. And just for you to see what are the commonalities, what are the differences, I compare this a little bit for you to better understand this. So peer mentoring, reflecting team is a group process, and the set meeting, on the one hand side, the group, on the other hand, a network of groups. So you can network it, and I come to that later. So the origin of at least reflecting team is clinical systemic. So the origin in reflecting team was schizophrenia, with schizophrenics and schizophrenic families, which is a very interesting start, why it's so successful in companies maybe. And on the other hand, critical action learning origin is universities and organizations already. So the epistemology is understanding changes on the reflecting team side, and it's action changes on the action learning side. So do something is the point and learn from it. Individual problems in general in reflecting team, and individual and collective problems is on action learning. Singular tackling of a problem, like we did yesterday with the kaleidoscope, so it's a one-time activity, whereas action learning in general is several times, a continuous tackling of problems, so that you do it several times in this set. Self-facilitated from the start very often, and support by facilitator, but still aiming at self-facilitation as soon as possible. And I think with a group like ours, of course, probably immediately we could go to self-facilitation. In other groups, with managers, they even take it as a service to be supported and needed to address these topics. So focus in reflecting team is the individual thinking and behavior of the problem provider. And in critical action learning, the focus is individual reflection and action, providing access to the wider system, to collective emotion and power dynamics. So this is among the points what critical action learning is dealing with. So management development on the one hand side, management and organization development on the other hand. So connecting the two, as I told you from the beginning. Yeah, and if you now go to the organization side, you see from person, can see to interaction is the next layer, and to group, organization, and network. So this is the range, the span of things we're dealing with when we're doing OD. And if we now compare the impact of intervention in individual coaching to the impact of intervention in critical action learning, there is an important difference in it. So in individual coaching, the focus is on one person. It's a person-to-person activity. It's on one person, and there is a lot of impact for that person, but the impact on the organization and the wider network is very much restricted very often. Of course, depending on whom you're coaching. If you coach the CEO of a major company, probably there would be more impact than coaching somebody who is just one among many managers, even senior managers, because the person changes, but not the environment. And if you do action learning or critical action learning, you have the group in the middle, you see. The group is called the set, as I told you. And the impact is to two sides. On the one hand side, since there is strict confidentiality, you go down to person and interaction, and you already have interaction not only between coach and coachee, but you have interaction among peers, and you can observe this. And this is a beautiful way of making interactions and learning happen. And on the other hand, this group has, and this is always the interest of action learning, that they're not just self-sufficient, but it's about making a difference in the organization they're in. But they decide together. And so you have a combination of trust, of closeness in this round, and deciding together what impact do we want to have in the organization. And a general framework or a general way of doing this is that you combine sets, and we call them conferences in action learning, so that you bring several sets together and come to a collective learning there. So, and if you do this several times over time, so in some examples with companies, it's even that we do it over several years, that there are sets and conferences, and so there is a learning for themselves and bringing it to the whole. So this is the idea behind it. And I think we saw several things which have emerged in different presentations we had here. So, and this is already what we are going to do here. And I wanted to make it very practical for you and a chance to learn and to practice this as a community and also as sets. And you're already grouped in groups of 5 to 6, whatever, or 4 to 5, something. And that's very good, because as next you would get a task, and this task would be create a collective learning and coaching community and sit together in your sets. I would call your groups now sets from now on, in the learning bay, and look for a space where you want to go. Leave this room here and go to any of our syndicate rooms or wherever, even to the open air, but I think it's a little bit raining, so for the very courageous people. But be back in exactly, now let me see, because we started a few minutes late. Pardon me?
It's 9:26, so...
9:26. Yes, if you could do it in... Yeah, we have more time? Okay, so you have 30 minutes time, but please be back in time so that we can continue here with the results you bring in. So create a collective learning and coaching community, and exactly according to my watch, it would be 9:55. Is that right?
Clarify a little bit the task.
You decide in your group what the task is.
Collective learning and coaching for nowadays, today.
Please discuss this in your group. So may I have your attention for a short moment? Please apologize that we have rearranged this room, and all your bags are still available, just to make sure for you. And Katja and me, we did them somewhere in this direction, so they should be here. And this is, of course, a little bit an experimental design also for you. And thank you for supporting this. And the next thing for you to do is please discuss, exchange with each other. Have you created a learning community, and how did it feel doing so?
We did. We can start doing. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we did create a hypothetical learning community, like as if, what would we do if we were one? Because we couldn't decide on the spot to be one. And at the same time, as we did that, I think we came to a very good resonance on how we would like to be it, and that was very strongly shared. It was not, we were not very different on that. I think we had a good sense of how this community would look like, having sense of responsibility for each other, for the outside world, making meaningful second-level relationships, and these kind of things.
Yeah, so I was on the same set. And in a sense, you could call us a community. It probably is a question also, what connotation do you put to the word community? And we had the sense that a community is something that develops and grows over time. And so we would say that within 30 minutes you don't grow into something that we would call community. But at the same time, we certainly reached a very good level of understanding. There was a good amount of connectedness among us.
I think that was true in the set we were in as well. How did we feel? I think we felt really, really good with the question that we were posed with. And I think it started as a brainstorming session where everybody put in ideas, and then somehow something formed, even a shape and a suggestion about how a project could link a community like ours together as well, and help INOC as well. So that's sort of where and I think we felt very good about the end of the discussion, that it was something that could be shared.
Yeah, we had an idea what to do today, because we had a metaphor coming up. It was, we have a table, and on this table we have food. So these 3 days, many people brought food on the table, and we really enjoyed sitting together on the table eating. And we also had we have a big bouquet of flowers on the table, and everybody brought also flowers, and they have scents and whatever. So please join us on this table here in front of us. And maybe for the next time, we also can bring something. Everybody can bring something. We can share this. And I want to invite you, because we felt connected, in this learning group. And so please come and join us. Yeah. And come to the table.
Not easy for an Irish. Big difference. The Brits and the Irish. We share that, I think. Maxine is she's a difference.
So we all
Hello again.
Actually, it's a bit too big to explain, but maybe I'll try a little bit. So what we discussed, or what we felt in our group, is that one question we took as a task was, where am I now after all these 2 days of input and exchange, and where am I in my head, in my mind, where am I in my heart, in my belly? And we found that the issue here, with all the different inputs we heard, different approaches and different experiences, so there are some individual inputs that came here, also had something in common. And what it was in common is being connected. And being connected to the bigger, something that is bigger than just a task. What do we need to be here, or what does this company need to do, this group of leaders, of managers, to be there in the future for the grandchildren and so on. And this is what made us aware that each of us contributes by being himself, and also has this desire and the need to be connected for the bigger. And so this movement from the individual, and it was also partly about meditating and being present, to know where I am, to know myself, and go out in the world, and then the connection starts. So it starts with being connected to yourself, and then being connected with others. And that makes an impact on all the other levels as well.
And we wanted to practice connection, not talking about it.
So the flowers on the table was a symbol or metaphor for each of us being a flower, and the beauty of a colorful bouquet of fleurs is going to have an impact, is going to be seen and perceived and has an impact to the outside world.
And to me it was, the being invited to the table was the part I felt most strongly about what happened in the last 2 days, because it was, for me, it was the connection of all these great minds before us, facing challenges in the workplace, companies facing, trying to solve them on an individual level, coming up with ideas, frameworks that can help this, and now we face different challenges, and still there is a community of professionals taking that into consideration, come up with frameworks, working individually with companies, but also trying to solve the similar issues everybody is facing worldwide. And so, and me being, when I remember at the time, being a student and reading all the big names, and now being here and being invited at the table where we can all share things together and feeling nourished and bring something and take something away. And the flower picture came in from different schools, because I heard so many different people coming from different schools like Gestalt, systemic, hypnotherapy, and still, and this is not an exclusive, and it's a very inclusive group of people in my mind. I found that amazing.
So let me add another total other flavor after this beautiful flower ball, which I really and makes me feel good and connected. Really, really nice. We had a totally different energy in our group, and it was not just Germans in the group. But it was all men. So we were got flowers. 6% German. So back to your question, were we a community? It was a little opposite to your experience. Like you started, we felt immediately connected to the task. We didn't feel connected at all to the task, because for us it was totally unclear. Are we talking about INOC? Are we talking about us as a set? And we have a brilliant, still the outcome is brilliant of what facets should be there for a community to work. So in a totally different meaning, I think we created a community just by being and by doing and by working together. And it felt like work, but still a good work. But I think it only worked because we were well-intentioned. If I now transfer that, if that setting would have happened in real life with people who are not so well-intended, but feel like, oh, I'm sent here to have that task, it would have, the result would have been different. And please chime in with other perspectives from that group.
So this is similar to the what we did. We were talking about what's the goal? Are we doing action learning right now here? Yeah. How is it connected to INOC? And then we started talking about goals and talking about our ideas. And I think we had a similar approach to this group. And we also talked about our experiences in learning, in projects, in peer groups or whatever. And we were discussing about what is action learning, what's the difference between peer coaching and action learning, what drives the people to get into the community, and is it innovation, is it working on issues? And I think one very important thing also was to have also lessons learned afterwards, to work on issues and then to make it a bit more sustainable, to come back again into the group and talk about that.
But I think we talk more about the form in which it can take place.
Right.
And so what's the kind of rules perhaps we need that it works.
Right.
30 minutes were enough time to really get into the topic. At the same time, 30 minutes weren't enough to really resolve the question for our group, at least. And it sounds to me that that is also a common experience with other groups. And so that reminded us also of what Peter Hawkins said, in the sense that you feel good about what you've achieved. You've come to the start of a solution. At the same time, you're not closed in on your way at looking at this question and having the complete answer. And so we were very curious what has happened in the other groups, and didn't feel like we now have the one answer. And I'm experiencing that now as I'm listening to all the different discussions or reports out of the discussions that have happened, that this is a nice balance, having a good amount of time but not having sufficient time in a way. Keeping the curiosity up and then being very eager to share with others and learn from others.
To me, the impact you have is that you want more. More what? Two-night road trip. More or what? What would you like to have? More. You said it wasn't sufficient. So if you...
No, I said this is perfect in a way, because
okay.
I'm not locked into what our group decided the solution was, because we felt like we had a good start on the answer, but we weren't, coming to this, well, now we're the experts on how to do this, kind of thinking. And so that's making us very interested in what are the starts to a solutions that others are coming up, what were the experiences of others, to in a way add all the starts of a solution together, and then see what kind of develops.
So what you are saying is that there are limits, then we become open and curious about others. So this is good.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I think if Bernhard had given us an hour, we probably would have come to very specific, and now we do this and that, and this is exactly what we need. And but it's better not to come to this very closed-in solution, but to kind of feel good about what has happened, but not feel like you've got the complete answer.
This relates back to yesterday a little bit. I think it was Peter brought in the idea of not letting the groups finish,
Yeah, exactly.
because it's easier to connect the pieces when somebody hasn't bought the idea fully for their group or something. I feel like that when you're talking. It's good that we didn't get it finished, because it allows the greater discussion.
So this is also all about dealing with uncertainty, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We have been talking about the VUCA world. Just realized from what you said and what described, this is how differently we dealt in the sets with this a little bit, not a little bit, but unclear, partly unclear situation. Mm-hmm. Yeah? And the keyword was curiosity for me, from what you said. Stay curious and see what can we do, what can we make out of this. Yeah, that's good.
And stay non-judgmental. Oh, the task wasn't clear. So what?
Thank you.
No,
I wasn't in it,
So, but then you sparked that in him.
Yeah, sure.
I found it interesting what you said, making a difference between the real world and here. And saying in the real world that would not have worked with this.
in some groups, yeah.
this is not a real world.
Well,
Just something that came up in the mind.
Another aspect is also dealing with uncertainty.
I found it interesting that you said the question was unclear. I would say it was open enough.
And maybe we take this as a moment to interrupt this session and thank you. And it's only a beginning, of course. And what I created here was a so-called leaderless situation. So, and the question is then how to deal with uncertainty, who has authority, how do I behave there, how are my feelings and my emotions in such a situation, what are my own mechanisms, what mechanisms happen there. And just let's maybe exchange a little bit, and you already stated many things about that. And I think the question was also the focus, who is community? Was it your small groups, or did you think on the whole group? And then there was this beautiful picture of the table, everybody is invited, and with the flowers and so. And this is also, what are your assumptions? How are you creating the world you're in? And is there still anything, how did it feel to be uncertain? So what was how was your feelings, your emotions about this? Was it all comfortable? Was it a great chance? Was it being uncomfortable also?
I felt excited
Uh-huh.
and happy, because I felt that we had the freedom to do anything we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. I wish it would happen often.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any more, even different feelings you had, maybe? Yeah?
At the beginning, a little bit disappointed because I was expecting something more from this word action, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But then it happened pretty quickly with the group that I was also able to indulge into the process.
Mm-hmm.
All fine.
Yeah.
Even with this freedom, and I really appreciated also the freedom and what we made out of it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I know that it is forbidden here, but I will. Gianfranco, if you want to explore this, go to 14 days Tavistock conference about authority, leadership, and organization, and you will explore uncertainty on a way you never experienced it before.
Thank you. I've done it many times, but this time was perfect, because I had in the room many leaders,
mm-hmm.
not just one.
Yeah. Yeah, and this brings to a point that Choralian says the word leaderless is a wrong word. And he created the word of leaderful. He said, as soon as the official leader is away, a leaderful practice will come into being. It's not easy to do that all the time. So sometimes it's embarrassing. And you had your assumptions. What is this about? Is it a Tavistock design? Is it is action not a little bit more than just being in a group or whatever it is? And is the real word different, as Raima said? So my experience, at least, is it works always, but with very different results. So that's the point, and very different discussions. And yeah.
The power of a group of people spending only 30 minutes together,
Yeah.
the possibility that's created is immense.
Mm-hmm. It's true, yeah.
And for me, there's a contrast between having spent 30 minutes and on your slides saying that this is a 6-month plus process.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like it's the opposite message.
Right.
And one of the things that was going through my mind was, in an environment that's changing rapidly, do we have 6 months? And what would a speeded up process look like, and get the learning? Because I guess you need the time for the learning to come out.
Yeah, I think one of the misunderstandings is when you have a 6 months learning time, that the learning is only in the end. But the learning is in every moment. And of course, many different things may happen, and it may be co-evolution, co-creation, groups may even change, the sets, and some need them for stability, because in this rapidly changing dynamic times, you need something where you feel at home. And the old wisdom is, it's a group of 4 to 6, 7 people, normally, where you feel at home, and where you will be able to be risk-taking, and it's about risk-taking and authority. Yeah?
I also, we work with a very similar setting with our clients, and for certain problems that involves the whole organization, right? You can't solve that in 30 minutes.
Of course.
Because you have these wicked problems, right? But then also those require a very deep learning process. You know them personally, where you think one day that this is the way you want to go, and then 2 days later you wake up and you have new information, or you decided Shine was saying get more information, and then you kind of say no, I have to revisit my earlier decision, and for that I think it's a very when you have a very stable setup where you kind of meet every other week or and everybody reconvenes and shares the new information, and that's kind of when the learning kind of happens, because despite the fact that we have a rapidly changing world around us, there are certain things, certain structures that we need to put in place that are more persistent over time, because they provide us the support that we need in order to adapt to whatever is going on in the outside world. Certain things you wouldn't want to change as rapidly as things are changing on the outside.
It makes me think of, for those of you who were in Klaus's session yesterday, the little mini rapid cycles wrapped with the more longer term support that goes around it over time. Mm-hmm. It's playing with the action learning in a rapid cycle way.
Yeah, and that's one of the ideas what you can use it for. And of course, if the conference comes together, they always can change everything. They can say, let's have more groups or less or no groups at all. So this is evolutionary. But point is about working also with anxieties, with uncertainty, and with the collective part. And what is power and who is in power? These are some questions. And if you want to, I could give you a few more insights. We have collected together on this, but it's a beautiful discussion with a beautiful picture also on this. This was also very nice how you changed the structure when this was this handshaking. It was wonderful. So everybody was in contact with everybody. But then you went back to the original structure which was set up here. This was very nice. Only now that the slides come, so there will be a more, is it hierarchical? I don't know. It's a little bit... Kiran coined a very nice, while our discussion took place, she coined a very nice point called critical action coaching. She suddenly brought this in, which could also be a chance of doing things. So critical action learning is a process of learning from questioning and critically reflecting on action with others, whilst also recognizing the role of power and emotion and the learning and non-learning. And this means and the non-learning is as important as the learning. And very often in organization, you have the non-learning. So Russ Vince, who is another central personality in critical action learning, said action learning traditionally said learning in action. But very often what happens is learning in action. So passivity. So, and this is part of the system. Yeah, Gianfranco?
Can you clarify what is non-learning?
What is non-learning? This is avoiding.
It's paradoxical.
Yeah, it's paradoxical, but it's avoiding going into some progress. So you might have stuck states and things like that. You might have, and this is one of the findings of critical action learning, that power dynamics prevent learning in organizations. It's not the individual person, but it's the power dynamics that prevent this. So that, and I often experience this in sets. It depends a lot what, for instance, the board or influential people, sometimes influential people in the set, allow. And so learning is prevented despite the capability and ability of the individual to learn. And this is something critical action learning works with. Pardon me?
So it's preventing learning.
It's preventing learning, yes.
Which is a learning in itself.
I would go with you in this respect, yes. Yeah. And, but a needed unlearning also. Yeah. For instance, when Reimer said so wonderfully, there was no clear instruction. So this is one way of preventing things also, that they say, okay, the guilty one is this fucking person over there, and couldn't they be more precise in what they're doing and all these kind of things. So how can you give authority to people? Yeah.
I'm not familiar with this approach. So the term critical action and critically reflecting, the critical, what is the meaning of critical?
Yes, the critical, it comes from the critical theories. It's a family of theories, especially in the German environment, it's the Frankfurt School of critical theory. So Habermas, for instance, is third generation of critical theory. Now they are with the fourth generation. And so they say what you need, this is Habermasian, is you need tempered radicals in organizations. It's not, as the second generation said, do a complete revolution and 68ers and so. But they say bring it in and free things, and they say emotion, and especially collectively shared emotion, is a very good cue and key to power dynamics. And you can see that if you feel uncertain, if you are angry, if you feel under tension, if you feel micropolitics, it's somebody exercises power on you, and this could be structures. Most often it's structures connected to people doing this, and finding out who is the leading power people. And this is why in action learning, you cannot do action learning with the set only. And this is a great difference to what reflecting team and so on is doing. But you need to have the leading guys in the organization with you and work with them too. So it's always on two sides what you are doing. And which also means to be confidential to the group and still talking with the board or the people in charge about dynamics in their organization and how they are influencing this and preventing or empowering learning. And this is a very nice work, because my experience is that when you start to talk openly with them what happens in their organization, most of them are willing to change something. And they never hear this from their people, because the power structure again prevents this. So it's about risk taking too, and of course I'm less endangered. And since I found that very nice when Gervais said, when you work as an OD consultant, you should have another job too. And there is some truth in it. But my experience is the more open and valuing I am to the leading people, the more contact is there. Yes, I do not have one idea in mind where I was fired because I was open to a leading guy. In my beginning time, I was more easily fired because I was not open. So this is my personal experience, but I think it's in what way are you open? This could be, but it's my learning. Your learning may be completely different from that. Well, if you look to these ingredients of action learning, you see the things which are more on the white side. This is also available in classical or traditional action learning. And there are few things which have changed a little bit or very much. So one thing, as I mentioned already, is the power and emotions, the system psychodynamics, as it's called. And you need to go to critical reflection, so talk about the unspoken, which is very important, and talk about the non-rational parts there, because they are decisive what happens. And this changes very much the role of the facilitator. So the facilitator in the classical action learning was the midwife somehow, setting up the process and going away. And in critical action learning, you are needed because they feel so insecure addressing these kind of things. And so they are so helpful if you do it, not in the beginning. It could be that people do not want this, and you have to deal why they do not want this. My experience is all managers know, whoever is all, but most managers know, most top managers also know that the decision is not made on the factual side, but on the emotional and mindset side. They all know that. And they are uncertain how to address this. This is facilitator work, is my understanding. And so this changes, and this is what is added to action learning in recent years. So surfacing and working with power and emotion is the unsaid, the unspoken. How do you feel about X, Y, Z? It's also tensions, ambiguity, contradictions in a situation, connections, as Peter mentioned yesterday, connecting different things and feedbacking this. And always asking what is really going on here. Those things which everybody, and no top manager would be a top manager if he would not have a good feeling for micropolitics. So, of course, they know, but it's not theirs to talk about this very often. So the questioning inside is often what you could ask, what does it mean? And this has two different parts when you want to find out patterns in this environment. So what does this mean, and what does it mean that you are doing this? You can use it in different ways, and this is talking about the different assumptions in the room. And I have developed a model, I call it a saga model, where I differentiate with managers the situation, the facts they're used to talk about, it's the S, and the A is the assumptions. So what do I think about it? And if you collect this, it's a great relief for them, because facts are right or wrong. Assumptions never are right or wrong, but they are interpretations, and people act upon assumption and not upon fact. And if you ask them for their gut feeling, it's a little bit tricky in the beginning, but they have their feelings and they know they have them. And after a while, they express them. And if you then find what is in common in your feelings, it's an access to action. What could we do about it? So this is what you could do here. And now, if you are still interested, I have a little story, a case story for you. I could also, would you like to read it? It's only 2 slides. Then just read it for yourselves. It's from Russ Vince, who is really very good in this field. No, I'm in the picture, sorry. May I proceed to the second slide? Okay, now, I think this is a story like Russ Vince observed in one of his sets, and wrapping it up, the critical action learning facilitation practice is different in a few points, just as a summary. So it's attending to unconscious dynamics. So this is one of the points. What assumptions have I not examined so far? What do I feel going on this? And to make to socialize in a sense of community building. So open it, making it, accessing it in the discussion, talking about this too. And the other one is using facilitation and critical friendship to highlight and challenge, questioning inside. But also, this is very important, if you want to break the so-called rational thinking, the fact thinking, you have to go on different levels. And this was beautifully exercised with your handshaking and flower picture. And there are many ways of doing this, but you have to do it if you want to get access to another way of doing things. You can't get it by the factual, by the rational part alone if you go there. And I just would like to invite you to close your eyes now. Just relax and close your eyes. So if you look to that, you saw this orchestra, and if everything works, but very often it does not at the beginning, but it needs sometimes a little bit time. So it's a little bit what we do as critical action learning facilitators is orchestrate this process. And when everybody found his role in this process and supporting each other and playing together, collective change will happen. And when collective change happens, this leads to organizational change. So this is the idea behind it, and thank you very much for being here and sharing this and all your ideas. If you want to have some background information, I have some stuff here. Also, I've written in German a lot, and I had an interview with Kieran in English, and translated in German is both available, and text there. And there's a book if you're interested. Just have a few materials here. Thank you very much, everybody, and have fun. That's